You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron, live with Ethan Haristadoulou.
What's up, everyone, and welcome back to more of the Greeks Gridiron. I'm Ethan Haristadoulou, and we're doing our power rankings for week number 16 of the NFL, and I have got to say, it has been another wild week in the NFL, and what has been a wild season. Upsets, teams coming back from holes that you didn't expect them to find themselves in the playoff race, a la the Detroit Lions or the Jacksonville Jaguars. It has been an absolutely insane year. The NFC South is hosting teams that are probably going to not even win 8 games at most and end up in the playoffs. It's absolute insanity right now. There's so much parity in the league right now. There is a decent amount of bad football being played as well. There are just some teams that look so bad and are this close to sniffing the playoffs still. Despite that, there's so much to get into and talk about in this week's Power Rankings, but I have a question of the week for you guys. And my question today, of the playoff teams currently in, so that's teams 1 through 7 that are in the playoffs as of this very week, who do you think winds up missing out, and who do you think ends up stealing their spot? So some prime candidates to potentially drop out of this playoff race here right now. The Tennessee Titans are currently sitting at 7-7 and are quickly losing what I thought was a firm grip on the AFC South, with the Jacksonville Jaguars hot behind them at 6-8. Strong possibility if the Jaguars win out and the Titans, if they lose, they're in the playoffs and they win the AFC South. And I can't even believe I'm saying something like that at this point, but the Jaguars are hot right now in the AFC. Obviously, Miami kind of in a weird spot right now. They've lost a few games. They're sitting at 8-6. They have the Jets and the Patriots right behind them at 7-7, despite the fact that both those teams have a handful of issues right now and are on the losing end of games more so than the winning as of late. Then on the NFC side, you have New York and Washington. Both teams right now in like a power struggle for some of those bottom seeds, but you have the Detroit Lions, who are as hot as ever, and then a team like the Green Bay Packers, whose offense seems to have finally figured it out. Didn't have the greatest showing last night, but they still got the job done and beat a team that they needed to beat in order to keep themselves within playoff reach at the very least. So there's a lot of teams that are sitting on like that bubble right now in seeds like 6 and 7 that could find themselves nowhere near the playoffs come season end. I'd love to hear who you guys think misses the playoffs and sneaks their way in and takes their spot. So comment down below and let me know. But without further ado, let's start diving into some of these power rankings and break all these teams down now. Beginning at the very bottom, we'll start with 32 to 29, and we're looking at the Texans at 32, the Bears at 31, the Rams at 30, defending Super Bowl champion Rams at number 30, eliminated from the playoffs, and then the Arizona Cardinals at 29. So the Texans, they are what they are. They've played a lot of teams really close. I will give them credit, but they are still a one-win team, and I feel like just some of their closer games recently are more so opponents just kind of looking past them. Maybe it is some development within the team and they're growing and, maybe they're finding some cohesion here late in the season, but they are still 1-12-1, and I just can't really rationalize them being any higher. The Bears sitting at the bottom of the league as well at number 31, another team that has found themselves in some closer games, but on the wrong end of the win-loss column and are just, at this point, 3 wins on the season. Not a whole lot going for them. I believe they are, at this point now, 3-11, 3-12. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but just a tough season for the Bears, where Justin Fields seems to be doing everything possible to keep his team within games, and everyone around him is just kind of costing those games. The Rams, obviously losing this week, find themselves knocked out of the playoffs, and it has been just an awful season for the Rams at this point. Aaron Donald did get put into the Pro Bowl, and whether you argue whether he should be or not, just because of how this season has kind of gone for him with injuries and production is not quite near what it normally is, he's in the Pro Bowl, whether you like it or not. And the Cardinals sitting at number 29. Another team that is just in a really weird place. They did win this, or excuse me, they didn't win. They lost. I thought they were going to win this week, but they took a loss to the Broncos, and they let up the largest point total for the Denver Broncos this season. A little bit surprising there, but at this point, this is another team that is just in the wrong direction after an offseason of drama. This is not the season you wanted to see from this team, and they are just trending in the complete wrong direction, and it feels like a shift potentially for this organization in some capacity is going to have to happen, because there is a clear disconnect between Kyler Murray and the coaching staff. The next group of four, we're looking at the Denver Broncos sitting at number 28, bumping up a few spots for their win. The Colts at 27, they slide up a few spots for a tight game, but ultimately a massive collapse against the Minnesota Vikings. Raiders also moving up, and then the Falcons slipping down here because of their loss to the Saints. Hats off to the Broncos, put up 25 points this week, the most points that they've put up all year long. That was arguably the best the offense has looked all season long, and it didn't include Russell Wilson, so take that for what it is. The Colts at number 27, I don't really know if, when I look at the game, I watched that one start to finish because I was in complete disbelief of what was going on in the first half when it was happening there. 33-0, you're up at halftime. I don't really know if it was them necessarily really beating the Vikings the way it looked, more, or if it was more so just the Vikings literally just like loaded up the revolver and rather than shooting themselves in the foot, shot themselves in each and every single toe, one at a time through the entire first half. Because once the Vikings got it together, they were very clearly the better team. The offense was not really effective through the majority of the game. They just kept getting really short fields and being able to put up points. And then the defense obviously kind of collapsing in the second half to the talent that was on the Vikings offense. So I don't really know what to make of this team. They played a team that is considered one of the best in the NFL record-wise to the absolute limit, so hats off to them. You do get some credit for that, moving up a few spots. Raiders get a big, what was the most wild ending to a game type of victory I've ever seen in my life. I don't know if I can think of a more just like absurd way to win a game. It felt like the Patriots were going to push this game into overtime and potentially win, but ultimately, you know, the lateral from Ramondre Stevenson to Jacoby Myers and the backwards pass right to Chandler Jones, who just was in the right place at the right time and took it to the house. Talk about making a statement to your former team. I mean, my goodness, not necessarily the greatest game. Devontae Adams was held in check the whole time, but a win's a win. Josh McDaniels beating Bill Belichick again. I'm at a loss for that, the way that game ended. The Raiders have been a part of some of the more wild finishes this year, and they continue on with that this past week. We'll see how the rest of the season goes for them. I guess they're still technically in the playoff race. A lot of work has to get done to find themselves in the playoffs, but there is a slimmer of hope for the Raiders in what at one point looked like a complete lost cause. And then the Falcons slipped down to 25. Tough day for them. And I've got to say, you know, that game kind of went as about as I expected it to. Desmond Ridder getting his first start. You're going up against a Saints team in New Orleans with a pretty good defense. Might not be as great as it has been the last few years, but still a pretty good unit at that. A lot of struggling, rookie growing pains, things like that. Just kind of what you would expect to see. And at this point in the season, kind of a tough spot to get your first start in. But, you know, Desmond Ridder did what he could with the opportunity that he had. We'll see how he shapes out the rest of the season, but just kind of a Falcons team that, while they're in contention for winning the NFC South, because the entire NFC South is right now at 9 and 8 losses for everyone that's in the division, this is a team that I feel like probably the least likely of the four to sneak their way in, just all things considered. Next four, we have the Saints at 24, the Panthers at 23, the Browns at 22, and the Bucks at 21. So the Saints at 24, they move up a spot here for obviously their win over the Falcons, as I just mentioned to them. Hats off to them. It's funny because like I think of the entire NFC South, and I think of teams that just probably aren't going to make the playoffs, but somebody is going to. The Saints, if they get right, their defense is probably one of the better within the NFC South right now. Carolina has some games where they sometimes seem like they have the best defense in the division, but I feel like it kind of gets passed back and forth between, like, it's like musical chairs with them two and the Buccaneers as well. I don't really know what to make of the NFC South. It just feels like a bunch of teams that doesn't really want to make the playoffs, but someone has to, so we'll see where they end up. And I kind of spoke on the Panthers here already. The Browns at 22. Offense is still awful. Luckily enough for them, there was no Lamar Jackson on the other side of the field, so thankfully they got themselves a W. I picked the Ravens to win that game because I really thought maybe they could still pull off the win. Hopefully this is just a season of knocking off rust for Deshaun Watson going forward, because right now the Cleveland offense, like, I love the running game over there, but watching them throw the football right now it's like the entire offense just took a massive step back, and you should have Jacoby Brissett in there, so I don't know. And then the Buccaneers at 21, the front runner for the NFC South right now. at this point, you could probably lose the rest of your games and still be the team that comes out with that division. But we'll see how things shake out for them. I don't really know what to make of the NFC South. The Buccaneers, they just look, they kind of had the game in control early against the Bengals, and then everything just kind of fell apart. So I really don't know what to make of the NFC South. That's all I really got to say about all them. It is just an awful division to watch. The offenses are stagnant, and then randomly they'll have a game or two. Like the Panthers are a team that I just have no pulse on, and the Steelers are another team, and I'll talk about them in a second. But the Panthers are a team I just don't understand. The Saints, they're a good defense that just, for some reason, they keep starting Andy Dalton at quarterback. The Falcons are a team with a rookie quarterback at the moment and a defense that's just not very great. And then the Buccaneers have Tom Brady, but for whatever reason, their offense just looks like poop. And I just don't really know what to make of that team. Again, then the defense some weeks looks great, other weeks it doesn't. Offensive line some weeks looks fantastic. Or not fantastic, that's grossly exaggerated. Some weeks offensive line looks fine to like decent, and then other weeks it's like a turnstile and teams are just destroyed and they're just getting Brady all the pressure in the world. I don't know. I don't really know what to make of the NFC South. Number 20, we have ourselves the Steelers. I said I'd talk about them in a second. The Jets are sitting at number 19, Seahawks at 18, and the Patriots at 17. So the Steelers, again, another team that I don't really have a pulse on. I feel like when I'm picking Steelers games, every single time I pick them to win, they lose, and every time I pick them to lose, they win. I don't really know what to make of this team, but they got themselves a nice victory this week. Hats off to them. One of those teams that, mathematically speaking, has a shot at the playoffs. I don't really expect to find them within the playoffs here. They're probably going to be sitting at like 8 wins at best come season end. There is an opportunity for that there. I think it just kind of depends on how the rest of their schedule shakes out, but they are what they are at this point. The Jets, they are well on their way to just completely losing any hope or chance of being in the playoffs come season end. They're obviously out at this very moment, and I'm very curious to see what this team does with Zach Wilson going forward, because you have a really good defense over there. I've talked about it all year long. The best four-man rush in the NFL. They blitz the least and get the most pressure out of anyone in the NFL. It's absurd the way they play. They have a fantastic four-man rush, and you have some really good talent in the secondary that's young, that's only going to get better. There's so much to like on the defensive side of the ball. And then the offense just makes you want to like throw a chair through a window or something. I don't know. It's very head scratching. Hopefully they can figure something out. I don't really know whether to buy into all the drama surrounding Zach Wilson or not. It sounds like there's a lot based off what people are saying. His play has not been super inspiring, and I mean, at this point right now, it feels like he only has a start because Mike White can't play, and that just does not feel right for somebody who was your second pick overall in the draft just a couple of years ago. Seahawks are at number 18, and talk about a team that is just trending in the complete wrong direction. At one point, they were world beaters, surprising everyone, and now they're starting to look more like the Seahawks that everyone kind of expected. I don't really know what to make of the Seahawks team now, because at one point, Geno Smith was the most efficient quarterback in the NFL. The defense was playing well above the sum of its parts, and I was just in complete awe of what this team was doing. But the defense has kind of started to fall apart again. The offense has really started to slow down and just like grind to a screeching halt. And at this point, there's a real chance that they maybe end up missing the playoffs. I mean, you have a team like the Lions that is really hot right now, that's in the thick of the race. You have the Packers who are kind of trending in the right direction. Their offense is finally starting to kind of figure it out. Granted, it's still kind of ugly. Aaron Rodgers clearly still dealing with that injured thumb, but he's still throwing the rock fairly well. Obviously, a misfire here and there that leaves you wondering, but then you remember it's probably the thumb. I don't know what the Seahawks team has left in the tank. It almost feels like they've kind of run out of gas, and it's kind of unfortunate because I really liked the way the Seahawks were playing earlier in the season, and I love the story behind them. So we'll see how things shake out for them, but not feeling too great about the Seahawks, at least right now. The Patriots at 17, I hate watching this team play football. I really do, and I hate saying that because at some weeks it feels like they're starting to figure it out, and then it just kind of like the wagon just falls apart every single game, and you think it can't get worse, and then this past game against the Raiders happens, and you literally just throw an opportunity to win the game away. I feel for Ramondre Stevenson because he is probably like the best player on the offensive side of the ball in New England, and his lateral kind of started out the chain of events that ends that game. Hopefully he learns from it, and It sounds like that wasn't the design and that was not supposed to be what it was. It was supposed to just be the draw and call it at that, see what you get, maybe surprise them, get a big walk-off touchdown or something. Maybe that was the thought process there. But hopefully he learns from that just going forward. Again, I think he is the best player on offense on that team right now, and it sucks that it had to be him. And Jacoby Myers, one of the most reliable players on that offense as well. Sucks that he also had to be one of the guys. Like, you had two guys that, like, when you look at the Patriots, you think, okay, Jacoby Myers, very consistent, is always going to catch the catch. He's going to make a play for you if you need him to, more often than not. And then Ramondre Stevenson has just been like an absolute stud. He was the guy that I picked as the next man up for the Patriots. And seeing that happen to both of them, I'm just like, my God, like the two, like, good, consistent things of your offense, and you just, like, they throw the game away. Like, those are the last two people you want to see throw a game away in such a crazy fashion. Next 4 teams, we have the Packers at number 16. They find themselves in the top half of the league on today's power rankings. Titans are at number 15 as they slip their way down. I have the Jaguars ahead of them at 14, and then the Commanders sitting at number 13. So Packers, like I said, I mentioned it already a little bit. Excited to see that the offense feels like it might be kind of figuring itself out by now. It's kind of late in the season to figure it out, but it seems like they might be sorting themselves out. I really am kind of worried about Aaron Rodgers' thumb. You saw a few of his passes where you were just like, dude, what's going on? And then you remember it's the thumb. He's probably not able to grip the ball as well. It's only getting colder in games, and in Lambeau at that, it's only going to keep getting colder during the rest of the season. This is a team that, like, I feel like they're going to make a push, but they're probably not going to quite get there, especially with a team like the Lions that is as hot as they are in the NFC North that they have to try to get through. And I can't believe I'm saying that as somebody who's grown up being owned by the Packers. The Lions are a threat to them. That's crazy for me to say. But this is a team that feels like they'll sniff around the playoff hunt towards the end, like through to the end of the season, but probably won't make it in. But maybe they surprise us. Maybe the offense really starts to click these last few weeks. Titans are at number 15, and as I mentioned, they are in danger of losing the AFC South, and I cannot believe that right now. They're sitting at 7-7. Jaguars are right behind them. The Jaguars have to win out. They are in control of their destiny. If they win their next 3 games, which includes a game against Tennessee, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I'm going to double check that schedule here as I'm talking, but this is one of those things where, like, just a few weeks ago, Mike Vrabel is your coach of the year. The Jaguars are well out of the playoff race, but a few upset victories here and there, and you're looking at a playoff scenario for the AFC South that I just did not see coming. So at this point, yeah, the Jaguars, they play them the final week of the season, it looks like. Is that what I'm looking at correctly here? Yep, final week of the season. So, I mean, Jaguars can win out, and they can steal the AFC South. That is a situation I did not expect to find us in, but here we are. So it's injuries starting to mount. Obviously, you keep having to, like, pull Ryan Tannehill out and poke Malik Willis in, who clearly needs time to develop. And while there are some exciting flashes here and there from Malik Willis, he's obviously not ready to do that right now. The AFC South is in a weird place. Colts and Texans, I'd probably just take away from the picture. At this point right now, Jaguars have some pretty awesome wins this season altogether, but even more so recently than anything. I'm really feeling the Jaguars. Doug Peterson has done an excellent job over there with just taking a team that was in the worst place I've ever seen a team last year with the Urban Meyer situation and all, and flipped the script completely. Brought in some good talent during the offseason, during the draft and free agency, and you're now contending for your division title. One literally, were they the first pick last year in the draft? I'm pretty sure they were, yeah, because they picked Trayvon Walker. So at this point, like, it's unbelievable to even consider that this is where the Jaguars are right now. Doug Peterson and company, you guys are doing a hell of a job over there in Jacksonville. And the Commanders at number 13, taking a tough loss to the Giants. I really thought that the Commanders at this point would have Chase Young back and in, like, full force, but obviously that's not the case, and I think that's holding this team back just slightly. Still a good shot to make the playoffs if they win a few more games, but a little bit worried about the Commanders right now. There sounds like there's a little bit of conversation going on with what happens with Taylor Heineke, which is something that I hate because I feel like every time Taylor Heineke gets the ball rolling over there in Washington, and this seems like a Washington thing. It's not even like, because the same thing happened with Kirk Cousins when he was there. Every time, like, you lose, like, no matter what your record is, they were like, what, 4-1-1 for the last, like, handful of weeks before they lost to the Giants or something like that. And, you know, everyone's all in on Heineke. boom, first loss, or you have half the losses as of wins that you've had in that 7-week stretch. Taylor Heineke's probably the guy that we have to move on from. But everyone was all in on him a few weeks ago. I hate that, because how do you expect somebody to really confidently lead your team with, knowing that like the moment you slip up, it's, we got to find a new quarterback. Like the same thing was going on when Kirk Cousins was there. That feels like an organizational thing, and they can't just commit to a quarterback. Like, I understand Taylor Heineke might not be the guy. Maybe he is just a bridge dude, but like, it's been going on for a handful of years now, and it was just a couple of years ago that Taylor Heineke damn near beat the Buccaneers during their Super Bowl run. I feel like I bring that up a lot, but yeah, I'm just word vomit at this point. Craziness all around the NFL. Washington, though, they're the number 7 seed right now, so they do control their destiny. Keep winning games. You might find yourselves in the playoffs still, despite the loss that you just had to the Giants this week. Lions are sitting at number 12 for me. I know some people want to say that they're a top 10 team right now. The defense is still for me to be saying something like that, but they're pretty close. Dolphins at number 11, Giants at 10, and the Chargers at number 9. So the Lions at 12, I really love this offense. I can't believe how good Jared Goff has been. I can't believe how good this offense has been as a whole, but it does make sense when you consider just how dominant their offensive line is. They can run the football, they can protect Jared Goff really well, and they have a litany of skill talent. I can't even believe I'm saying that about the Detroit Lions, but here we are, litany of skill talent over there. They are hot at the right time. They're probably the hottest team in the NFC right now, and they're well on their way to potentially pushing themselves into the playoffs. You got to get a few more wins to end this season and sneak your way in, but if you can go 10-7 and you win those games, the Lions have a prime opportunity to shock the world and just get into the playoffs. And I don't think a lot of people really expect that, especially when you consider like their scoreless loss to the Patriots earlier in this season. It felt like this team was dead in the water and people were making fun of Dan Campbell. I am a Dan Campbell guy. I love the energy he brings to that Lions team. You can tell the players love playing for him. He is just one of those dudes, and I'm so excited to see these last few weeks shake out because I want the Lions to push into the playoffs. If they just make it in as a number 7 seed, I would be happy. The Dolphins at number 11, kind of trending in the wrong direction right now. Defense has been the problem. It seems like they're slowly starting to kind of fall apart on the defensive side of the ball. Offensively, they're putting up points. They're doing their thing. They're keeping themselves within games. I know people still doubt on Tua every single week, and I mean, at this point, I definitely don't think he's a bad quarterback. I definitely think he's a pretty good quarterback, and he has great talent around him, and he's able to maximize his skills. But the Dolphins right now trending in the wrong direction. They're not as hot as they were a few weeks ago. I feel like it wasn't too long ago I was talking about Tua being undefeated all season long for when he's starting to finishing games. Obviously, that not being the case anymore. But they did take the Bills to the absolute limit. I mean, they played it to the very end, and it came down to a last-second field goal. But still a playoff team. Little bit concerned about just the direction they're trending right now, but still one of the better teams in the NFL, without a doubt, sitting at 8-6 in the playoffs. Giants at number 10, you get a big win, 8-5-1 for them. That was a massive win for the Giants because another team that was like trending in the wrong direction, and this was like a real good way to kind of stop that slip down the slope and put yourselves back on some solid footing and just a feel good moment as you head into like that push for the playoffs. This was a game they needed to win, and it was a pretty solid win at that. Especially over a division rival you just tied with a few weeks ago. So hats off to them. I did not expect them to come out victors in that game. So double down on the congratulations on that. The Giants have been one of the more injured teams in the NFL. So for them to still be in this position is excellent on their part. Brian Daboll and company really deserves credit for this team to be where they are. I mean, that entire coaching staff has taken a team that I did not expect to be able to push for the playoffs this early, and they're a team that's probably going to end up with, 10 wins come season end. I could definitely see that as a realistic possibility. It's going to take a lot, but they could wind up with 10 wins. 9 wins maybe, 9, 10, something like that. The Chargers sitting at number 9. My goodness. Listen, closer game than I would have expected against the Titans, and also not as high of a scoring game. This is a game that you're going up against. Like Malik Willis is like making intermittent performances within the game as Ryan Tannehill's coming in and out. I would have expected the Chargers to put up more points against the Titans' pass defense. It just has not been great, but they got the job done. Justin Herbert is people call him the social media quarterback, and sure, if you want to try and say that, by all means, he is top 5, one of the most talented. I'm not saying best quarterback, but at this point, top 5 most talented quarterbacks. His arm strength and just like the ability to put the dagger in the chest of teams that they're playing right into the heart when needed is kind of crazy. And I was having a conversation about this with somebody. I don't know if Brandon Staley is going to be the guy that leads the Chargers into like that true like Super Bowl run that I would like to see Justin Herbert and the Chargers go on at some point. But if he can just get some, defense is obviously hurt. If they can get a healthier defense, because there is a lot of talent on that defense. I don't want to say it's talentless, but it is hurt. If they could get just more talent or a healthier defense and maybe some more talent on that other side, and yeah, there's a lot of guys around him that are really successful, but sometimes the coaching decisions just leave me scratching my head. Listen, they're in a really good spot right now. They've beaten some good teams. This is a legitimate threat for the Super Bowl right now. It feels like a long time ago. Week 1 of the season, I believe it was week 1 of the season, we had Chargers-Chiefs. Maybe it was week 2, one of those two. They only lost to the Chiefs by 3. This is a team that's played some of the better teams in the NFL really tight and lost. Yeah, they have a head-scratching loss here and there, and I think that doubles back to like coaching and whatnot. But this is a team that could very well find themselves in the thick of the race for a spot in the Super Bowl as the AFC representative. Maybe not my first choice. Like I said, I don't know if Brandon Staley is going to be the guy that leads this team. I feel like coaching kind of holds this team back at times, but they're definitely within that conversation. Next 4 teams, we have the Ravens at 8, Vikings at 7, Cowboys at 6, and the Chiefs at 5. The Ravens are probably a little bit higher than they should be, which fair argument if you want to say that. I totally understand why. For me, Lamar Jackson's obviously not playing, and this team is still keeping games tight despite the fact that Lamar isn't in. Like, you think of the loss that they just had to the Browns this week. If Lamar Jackson is playing, I firmly believe that you probably win that game at least by a score. And they're still in a good spot. They're not the division leader anymore. Obviously, with the loss to the Browns, put them back. Bengals now lead the AFC North. But right now, if they can just get Lamar Jackson back for this last stretch of games, you win another game or two, you're looking at 10 or 11 wins, you're in the playoffs. The defense is still really good. Marcus Peters just got hurt. That's going to be something you have to keep an eye on. One of when he's healthy, because I feel like he has dealt with a handful of injuries through his career. Definitely a really good corner in the NFL. But overall, I really like the defense. I believe in John Harbaugh. You have one of the best kickers in NFL history, which doesn't sound like a lot, but in certain situations has come in pretty clutch for them. 66-yard field goal. But this is a team that is just so well coached. There's so much talent, and they play to the team, like the player, like personnel strength so well. They could probably be lower, but I believe in the Ravens. I believe in what they've got going on over there, and just Lamar Jackson needs to get back and be healthy, and I think this is a team that can make a strong push in the playoffs. Vikings at number 7. They actually moved up a spot in my power rankings this week. I had them at 8, and I moved them up to 7, and my rationale for this is, yes, you almost lost to the Colts in unbelievable fashion because the Colts should not have done what they did to them. But as I mentioned with the Colts, this was more about the Vikings just shooting themselves in the foot the whole first half and then finally coming back and being the better team and winning the game in some crazy fashion. I do want to give them credit for that comeback. It takes a lot to dig yourself out of a 33-0 hole and win the game. However, I am slightly concerned about something like that because you're not going to get away with that against some of the top teams in the NFL, a la when they played the Dallas Cowboys and the Eagles. 2 teams that they got blown out by, no comeback against. I still think, though, you need to give them credit for being able to mount that comeback, for being able to go into halftime. Patrick Peterson letting the team know we just need 5 touchdowns. Not a lot. We just need 5. But it is something that they deserve credit for being able to come back for. Again, if you want to say they should be lower because of that, fair enough. But I really feel like that game and almost losing was more so just like just them getting in their own way than it was like the Colts taking it to them. A lot of mistakes early on, but they were able to correct every single one and come away with the victory. And again, most historic comeback in the NFL, largest comeback ever in NFL history. You got to give them credit for that, for being able to overcome every single mistake they made in the first half and still come out victors. You just can't seem to kill this team. They're going to be within the play. They're going to be in a real good spot for the playoffs. They're probably going to win the North here. Or I think they did win the North already. So at this point, I mean, they're in the playoffs. We're going to have to see if they're the frauds that a lot of people seem to think they are. But right now, even if you're a Vikings player and that was a really close loss, you got to be feeling yourself just a little bit for that comeback victory. Cowboys are sitting at number 6. Pick 6 to lose the game in OT against the Jaguars. Last week I chalked it up to just kind of overlooking the Texans, but maybe we're seeing a crack or two in the armor of the Cowboys right now. 2 games that I did not expect to see from the Cowboys. I expected them to roll over the Texans, and the Jaguars I know have been giving teams better fights, but maybe the Jaguars are really trending in the right direction, whereas the Cowboys are maybe starting to slip a little bit. I don't know. They've got to have a real good bounce-back game next week because confidence in the Cowboys, I love their pass defense. I love their pass rush. Super dominant group, but offense, man, it just kind of sketches me out sometimes. Even though that they're putting up like 34 points and going into overtime, sometimes the mistakes that get made offensively just it scares me from buying in on this Cowboys team. And a few weeks ago, I felt like I was getting real close to being all in on this team. But you see them lose to a team like the Jaguars. And again, no disrespect to the Jaguars. They're on a pretty crazy run themselves right now. Might find themselves into the playoffs. That was a game I really expected the Cowboys to win and win firmly. Chiefs at number 5. This was another game that I did not expect them to be struggling against the Houston Texans team, but maybe it's just the Texans' MO. I've talked about that a lot. They seem to be a team that just plays teams really close. I don't know, but this was a week of some really close games with some teams that you didn't expect them to be having close games. Like I think the spread for the Chiefs game against the Texans was like -14. So really shocking results there as well. They got the win. Patrick Mahomes probably deserves MVP for keeping his team alive all season long in games where they probably could have lost if they had anyone else at quarterback. I know Jalen Hurts is the other guy, Josh Allen, but Patrick Mahomes is definitely somebody that I would not be too shocked to see walk away with the MVP award at the end of this season. And then for the final 4, we have the 49ers at number 4. You 49ers fans giving some respect to this team. Well-deserved. The Bills at number 3. I have the Bengals at number 2. And the Eagles at number 1. So the 49ers right now, defense, unbelievable. Rookie quarterback Brock Purdy doing enough for the team to get the job done and win, limiting the mistakes. I mean, I can't speak enough about how this is one of the more like shocking things we're seeing this season. It's not that I've really doubted the 49ers. I just kind of doubted the quarterback situation. And while I'm still kind of on the fence about it, I love the unknown of what we have in Brock Purdy and who knows what he's going to do with this team for the stretch run. Whereas I knew, or at least I felt like I kind of knew what Jimmy Garoppolo is as a quarterback. So hats off to the 49ers. That defense is unfreaking believable. Bills at number 3. You get a tight victory over a division rival. Game-winning field goal as the snow started to come down over there in Buffalo. This is a team right now, one of the best in the NFL. They're doing their thing behind Josh Allen. Elbow thing seems to be long gone in a distant memory at this point. I feel like I haven't heard about that in a few weeks, so I guess that thing is gone as well. This is a team that would not be surprised to see in the AFC Championship or the representative of the AFC in the Super Bowl come season end. They just look like they're hitting on all cylinders right now despite losing Von Miller. This team, they feel like world beaters this year. We'll see, but they have all the right wins over all the right teams in the AFC right now. Their big test is going to be against the team that I have at number 2. Bengals and Bills is a game I am really excited to see. You have a Bills team that a lot of people look at as one of the best teams in the NFL. You have a Bengals team that is hotter than pretty much everybody in the NFL, both AFC and NFC aside. I would argue that the Lions are probably the only team hotter, and that's an argument more so than like a fact because the Bengals have some really good string of wins in their win streak right now against some pretty solid opponents. And then, of course, the Eagles at number 1, sitting at the top. I feel like I've had the Eagles as number 1 for at least like half the season at this point in some shape or form, whether they were at that first string of week 1 weeks that they were their number 1 teams for like, I don't know, I had them at number 1 for like 5 weeks or 6 weeks before I dropped them down, losing the Commanders and brought them back up eventually. But I mean, at this point, hard to deny them being the best team in the league. They seem to just get it done each and every single week, whether it's an ugly win in one way or a strong-looking win in another. They find ways to win. Their only losses to a Commanders team, division rival. I mean, I don't know. Who else is supposed to be number one? I really don't know who you could put at number one and it not be the Eagles at this point. But those are my power rankings for week number 16. I'd love to hear what you guys think in the comment section down below. Appreciate you guys for watching. Thank you all for hanging out. I will see you all next time. Have a good one.